Okay. So, greetings, brothers and sisters. Tonight is November the 23rd, 2021, 8:15 p.m. We're going to start our Division 421, UNIA-ACL Division 421 study group. We're going over our division officers training, message to the people, of course, on African philosophy with Marcus Garvey. We open it up to all division officers in the UNIA. Before we get started, we'll do a quick roll call. What I've got is myself, Brother John, Division 421. We have Lady President of Chicago, Division 401, Tanaya. We have First Lady Vice President, Division 421, Sister Ebony. LHS Late Show. I've seen your name before. I know who you are, but it just keeps going up in LHS Late Show.
First Vice President, Baltimore.
All right. Thank you.
Race first.
Race first. First Vice President out of Baltimore, and my wife, Black Cross Nurse Coordinator out of Atlanta. That's what we have on the call tonight. I think that makes 5 of us. Small group tonight, and that's interesting. I wish we would have had a bigger group to go over this section. I'm not sure if, I know holidays are going on and everybody's traveling and things like that. It's a lot of reasons why people couldn't make it, but when it comes to accountability, I think that's where we kind of fall off as a people, as a group. And this lesson was big on accountability, so I just wish more people were here. I'm not trying to point the finger, and this is not about pointing the finger at anybody, but it's just about us holding each other accountable as leaders. And I think that's what I got a lot out of this lesson that we're about to review. All right, so with that, it's 8:17. I'm gonna go grab some water real quick, and we'll get started. Yeah, like this is one of those lessons that you just want everybody to be clear on and have a understanding of, like, okay, we're on the same page. As always, we start with the pledge. Put your black fist in the air. Repeat after me. Face the red, black, and green flag. You got one. I commit my body, mind, and spirit.
I commit my mind, body, and spirit
to the protection, defense, and security.
To the protection, defense, and security.
Of the red, black, and the green.
Of the red, black, and green.
I dedicate my life to the redemption of Mother Africa.
I dedicate my life to the redemption of Mother Africa.
And the liberation of her scattered Black children.
And the liberation of her scattered Black children.
I accept for myself and my descendants.
I accept for myself and my descendants.
The teachings of universal African nationalism.
The teachings of universal African nationalism.
And I promise that our children will be instilled.
And I promise that our children will be instilled.
With the purpose and knowledge of themselves as African people.
With the purpose and knowledge of themselves as African people.
In order that the cause of our struggle.
In order that the cause of our struggle.
Will neither falter nor fail.
Will neither falter nor fail.
Until all Black people are free and united.
Until all Black people are free and united.
Through one God.
Through one God.
One aim.
One aim.
One destiny.
One destiny.
Race first.
Alhamdulillah. John, race
Race
first.
first.
Okay. I've added this slide. Added this slide to the class. This will be something that we'll do every time we have the class. We got people that come and people that go, but not everybody is at every class. And I think we only went over this once. So just want to make sure as people are coming and joining, we all commit to the oath. So you can say this to yourself. I just want to make sure we all agree at the end. So, I'll say it. I'll read it to myself, and you can just put your name in there. I, John Hargrove, do solemnly swear before Almighty God that I have entered upon the instructions. I just typed this in. Of the African School of Philosophy, conducted by Marcus Garvey, for no other purpose than to serve the Negro race through the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, of which he is President General, and that I shall not use the knowledge so gained to promote or advance the interests of any other organization. I shall confine myself always to the service of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and work within the framework of the organization for any promotion I may desire for the improvement of my race. I shall never divulge or reveal any of these lessons I receive to anyone, and I shall never allow the lessons or records thereof to fall into the hands of anyone, and shall never records in the hands fall into into anyone, and shall safeguard the same with my life from falling into hands of other races. I shall always use my energy and ability to advance the interests of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and shall never be in rebellion against it. And to this I swear myself, my honor, and my sacred trust. And should I fail this oath, may the just reward be meted out to me, so help me God. By default, everybody on this call affirms to that, unless you speak out, but you don't. All right. 8:23. Oh, I wasn't sharing the whole time. Sorry about that. So I had the pledge, and then I had the oath, the School of African Philosophy. All right. So we're gonna go over the questions from lesson 7. Very, very important lesson, critical lesson, and it builds on everything that we've gone over thus far. So, first question for lesson 7, according to Garvey, what does good character mean? What does it mean to have good character?
Kind behavior, morals, and discipline, I think.
Kind behavior, morals, discipline. Yes, you are. Yes, I would agree with that. Anybody want to add anything?
Integrity.
That would, yes, that's in there. What Garvey says, let me get my split screen up. Go back and forth. So he talks about the demonstration of kind behavior that meets the moral precepts of a civilization. So that would include the things that we talked about. The good behavior, character means demonstration of kind behavior that meets the moral precepts of a civilization. Then it is laid down by society. Okay, yeah. I think that's actually the next question. Yeah. Who defines the standards for good character, and what happens when we do not live up to those standards? So, before we go there, the answer to the first question, what does good character mean? It's a demonstration of the kind of behavior that meets the moral precepts of a civilization. So everything that we mentioned, from integrity to the things that our brother mentioned as well, all would go under the umbrella of moral precepts of a civilization. But the thing is, what is good character, it changes over time, depending on the civilization. So I think that's one of the points, depending on the what area we're living in and what part of the world you live in. The definition of good character changes based on what civilization you live in. Who defines the standard for good character, and what happens when we do not live up to those standards?
Oh, the society.
Society, yes.
View of you. And if their view of you is not good, then it's an uphill battle to change that view, or they'll just never accept you.
Correct. The society in which we live are the ones that determine what good character is. And when we don't live up to those standards, we won't be respected. We won't get help from society. We will be looked upon poorly. So yes. What is the greatest prop to character? What does Garvey say is the greatest prop to character, also known as the best policy?
Honesty?
A shame.
Honesty, yes. Garvey says the best prop to character is honesty. Let me go to the book. I like to go back and forth. I hope y'all appreciate that as well. The greatest prop to character is honesty. Honesty is the best policy. Let no one believe that you are dishonest. If they believe you are dishonest, you are doomed. You will never be able to rise to a position of respect and trust. But honesty is the best policy. That's the best prop to good character, being honest and being known as an honest person.
With that said, and we look at some of like the leaders, that we have like today, it's amazing because the seems like the exact opposite is true today. The more you tell the truth, the more people get away from you. And the more that you tell them what they want to hear, the more they gravitate to you. And usually when you're telling them what they want to hear, you're usually lying to them.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's always been an issue in democracy. I think they talk about it as if a doctor versus a candy shop owner was running for president, most people would pick the candy shop owner because he gives you what you want instead of give you what you need. But I think what we want to focus on here is from a character perspective, being men and women of our word. I think that's a big thing.
Can I say something else?
Sure.
That when we're talking about, losing street credit, is we as a community don't hold people's feet to the fire anymore the way that we did before, and that came with the destruction of our communities. Because back then, talking 100 years ago, somebody know you, like, oh yeah, John let me down, oh yeah, he told me he was going to do this, and then they talking to Reds over here, and Reds like, yeah, John did such and such, and so on and so forth. And next thing you know, everybody in the community, you come around and be like, yeah, man, I'm trying to, put together such and such, and everybody looking at you sideways, But nowadays, as long as you talk big, you people are trying to gravitate to you. That's what I meant by, like, as long as you tell people what they want to hear and you boasted their egos, you ain't got to tell the truth. All you got to do is play to their ego, because we as a community don't hold people responsible. We have the most amount of politicians that we have ever had in the history of this country sitting in Washington, and not one of them are really doing anything for us.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm done.
No, if I can interject, because that's something, even as a politician, I'm a politician myself. And even as a politician, I have still held a moral to holding people accountable for their promises and the things that they said they're going to do. even in my capacity, I definitely agree with you, and I see that so often, and that's something that we as an organization, as a government, have to change. We have to set in the standards of accountability, because that is important for us to even change and grow as a people for the generations to come. We can't keep having that just because that was that happened, and that was a truth at one point in time. But now that has been brought to light, we need to have that in our strongest part of our integrity, like to hold people accountable for what they are supposed to do to help this change. So I shade you, brother.
I shade. Excellent comments, brothers and brother from Baltimore, as well as Lady Vice President. You guys were alluding to the next lesson. Lesson 8 talks about the social system and how we hold elected officials accountable through our vote. But you're right on point. You're right on time. A key component is organizing, though. I think the issue that we have is we lose strength when we're not organized, and we all are coming at things as an individual. And as an individual, we go back to that no accountability. We talk about accountability from a leadership perspective, but what about accountability from a voter perspective? And that's where, from what I hear, I mean, we look at it both ways, but we have to attack it both ways as well.
And that's just like, if I can intervene, it's just like being a seller and a buyer. You have, as a seller or as a leader, you have these expectations and you give them out, but the buyer wants you to provide all of the perks that come with you. It's like you're supposed to do it alone. The voter has this, and it's coming from a leader and a voter. The voters have this mindset like they don't have to do anything. Like, they just supposed to sit back and relax in the shade. And they expect the politician or the seller to accommodate them hand and foot. Like I don't know what this slave mentality, how it even comes to, society, a social society, not necessarily like a parent and a child, but like neighbor to neighbor. I never understood that. Is something that has always thrown me off my square, because a politician can't do it alone. And that makes politicians kind of go into the mindset of going to like the dark side or whatever. I can understand both sides. I can understand how the politician could go, trying to do crooked stuff and things like that, because they don't have any support from the people. All they have is the written in. What I need to just write this. That's all I have to do. Okay, fine, I do that. But as far as putting in physical work to support that vote, that's the toughest thing I think we had, us as a people. Everybody doesn't do this. I think this is the worst problem that we have as Black people, is literally supporting one another and supporting our organizations. Like, we used to be good at it back in the day, when our grandparents and stuff was alive, but us, it's tough. It's like pulling teeth and talking to a wall.
Okay. But yes, that's why we have the hard job. As Garveyites, we know this information and we accept the responsibility to try to correct, and enlighten our brothers and sisters. So, we're not going to take the approach of, turning our backs or trying to take advantage. We have to enlighten our people and make sure they have the tools, to hold our leadership accountable. But I don't want to spend too much time on that. Like I said, we'll talk a lot about that. We'll talk more about that in lesson 8, the social system. Next question, in regards to character, why should we never borrow money unless we intend to pay it back?
Because if you fail to pay it back, or you start ducking the person, it shows very poor character.
Pretty much. Garvey. But I like the comment that you used, brother, when you said street cred. I didn't bring that didn't come to my mind when I was reading it, but now that you said it, a lot of this chapter is about that, your face card, so if we borrow money and we don't pay it back, one, the individual won't want to borrow you money in the future, but also it creates a bad reputation. Anything on that? Okay. What is a good policy? Why is it a good policy to keep a good and honorable name? Yeah, so again, why is it a good policy to keep a good and honorable name?
Because that's what you're going to be known by, especially in smaller circles. People are going to hear your name, know your name, and you don't want people to throw dirt on your name, and because that's it's all a part of like your persona. So once your persona is ruined and your name is ruined.
Yes, I could take the term persona. Garvey used the word good credit. Your name is credit. As people know you, okay, he pays people back. He's honest, or they're honest. You'll have a good reputation, especially in modern day, where everybody's, taking advantage of everybody. To be honorable will make us stand out. I go to number 6. What should you do if you have to? What should we do if we have to be immoral because our nature is weak? If we have to be immoral because our nature is weak, what should we do about it? If we have to do something that we know we shouldn't do. And this is a tough lesson. This lesson is not for everybody. It's not for your ordinary member. This is for leadership. Some of these things that Garvey mentions are things that most people could disagree with, but it comes with a level of understanding, and you have to look at the whole lesson. But
I just want to catch the answer because I didn't catch that part, so I'm interested in what Garvey said on this answer in particular.
Thank you, Sister Riley. No problem. Brother from Baltimore, Lady President from Chicago. Y'all want me to just go in? Let me turn that off. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, you
Did
got
he
me
say
on that
do
one.
it in a? Did he say try your best to conquer it, or just do it in another town far away from where you live or something?
You there? You getting there? You a step ahead, but basically, he said you have to hide it. Let me see exactly what he says on this. Page 62.
That's what I was thinking. Even as in my persons, like whatever immoral you have to do, you have to do it behind closed doors. Like everybody's business. Everything ain't everybody's business. Excuse me.
Yeah. No problem. Thank you, First Lady Vice President. This is the paragraph where he talks about it. Morality is upheld everywhere in civilization. Don't be immoral in your community. Somebody will tell on you and expose you, and the homes of the community will be closed against you, and respectable people will shun you. If you have to be immoral because your nature is weak, then hide it. Keep it within closed doors and be sure nobody knows about it. So, these are Garvey's words. We have to know this information from a leadership perspective. Not to say that we agree or disagree, but this is the text. We good on that one?
I had said those words and I didn't even catch that or read it, so I'm kind of proud of me.
That's why I love Garvey. Like, I came to Garvey, I found out about Garvey in my 30s, but it's kind of good and bad. It was a little late, but it allowed me to develop my own individual way of thinking, and then when I came into what Garvey was thinking and how he was, way back then, it's like, shit, I'm thinking the same things right now, but that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. That's why I love Garvey. That's why I love this organization. Next question. How do we not, and this is why I'm glad I put that, he talks about what to do if we have to be immoral, but he follows that up with how do we not become immoral, and what does immorality lead to? So what should we do to not become immoral? And if we, what should we do to not become immoral is the first thing, and what does immorality lead to? That's the second question. So how do we prevent from becoming immoral? It's a good question. We got to know this.
Isn't it keeping yourself in good company and making whatever your weakness is, you're trying to overcome your weakness?
I'm gonna go with that. Yes, yes. I like that. He talks about that a little bit more later on, but I do like what you're saying.
Didn't he say something about practicing those things that are good, those things that are righteous, in order to combat your own, drive to do immorality? You say you have to practice
doing things good, doing things righteous. I'm with you. So what he says in the book, he says, if you read good books and think loftily, you will not be immoral. If you are intelligent, you will not be immoral, because immorality leads to disease, pain, suffering, and ultimately premature death. But I think what I had here, read good books and think loftily. That's exactly what we went over in lessons 1 through 6. So everything that we've gone over previously is are tools to help us prevent immorality. From intelligence, leadership, aims and objectives of the organization, elocution and health, God, Christ, death, having examples of the Holy Spirit of goodness. These are, the eternity and the infinity of death, and how we don't die, but our matter transfers to the other things. Like, these are lofty thoughts. These are not. These should prevent the path of immorality. Okay. But yeah, that was a good question. Well, that's a good tool that Garvey gives us on what he recommends to prevent immorality. Next question: why is it that an immoral person cannot find good company?
He's a bad influence. People will perceive him to be a bad influence and don't want their name ruined by the company that they keep.
Yes, yes, I'm with that. But yeah, basically, good people don't want to be around you. So good people don't want to be around you, and I think we talked about this in one of the earlier lessons when it was talking about keeping good company. But it follows up on that here, and it says, people that are immoral have no choice but to be around other immoral people.
I see.
Okay. I'm not gonna go too deep into that one. Still got a couple more questions. We got it's like 20-something questions total. Rule number 9. As a leader, what should we never do in regards to relationships? And that's 2-part question, because he said something about relationships when we're not married, but he said something else about relationships when we are married. But they both along the same lines.
When he say like, then he say don't date two women or two, if you're a woman, two people in the same organization.
You got that one. So he said first he said never flirt or indicate that you're a flirt. And then he also followed up with never make love to two people, exactly as you said, that are in the organization. It will eventually cause a fight. And then in regards to marriage, he just basically said don't talk to married people. Don't mess with someone's wife or someone's husband. We good on that? We clear on that one? Okay, next question. Most of the bad things, Garvey uses the word deformities, in the community are the result of what? Most of the deformities in the community are the result of what?
Was it public drunkenness?
You're in there.
Oh, just being intoxicated. Pretty much putting your bad habits out in the street.
Pretty much.
Because
yes.
remember he was saying you got to hide it. You know what I mean? If you have a weak characteristic, but in what kills the community is when people do their dirt openly.
Yes. Absolutely. Let me go to the text on this one. But Garvey says most of the deformities in a community are the result of immoral and loose people cutting loose. Sick people never produce good children. Disease in man is destructive. It destroys the species and wrecks the mind of man. I don't want to go too far because the next question was in there. But Garvey says that most of the bad things in the community are a result of immoral and loose people cutting loose. So that foundation of morality, and having strong, good character will do a lot towards benefiting the community. Okay. Next question. What is the first thought that a healthy man has of a poor-minded man? First thought that a healthy man has of a poor-minded man. This was just a question that Garvey had made a comment about it, and I just wanted to ask you that question. What is the first thought that a healthy man has of a poor-minded man? Anybody? All right. I'm not going to belabor. But the first thought that a healthy man has of a poor-minded man is that his parents were immoral and stamped their immorality on him, which he is to carry through the world by his particular affection, be it poor mentality or in various disability. But first thought, according to Garvey, that a healthy man has of a poor-minded man is that his parents were immoral and stamped the immorality on that individual. Just going back to character and morality. Next question, number 12. What can we use to conquer every bad habit? What can we use to conquer every bad habit?
Self-discipline.
Pretty much. Self-control was the word Garvey used, but that's absolutely the same thing. Yes. If we have self-control, self-discipline, we can conquer every bad habit. And what is it called when we conquer bad habits? What is that called? All right. Let's see. Always, Garvey says, always see the injury that the bad habit will do you. If you don't want that injury to your health, your mind, your body to bring pain, worry, and happiness, and fight it to the death. This is what is called man mastering himself. When we are able to conquer our bad habits, according to Garvey, that's called man mastering himself. This one should be straightforward, hopefully. How often should we bathe, according to Garvey? And what does Garvey say is the minimum number of times that we should bathe in a week?
At least twice a day, right?
At least twice a week?
A day, I'm sorry.
Twice a day? Good. That's a good one.
It be hot some days, bro.
Garvey says at least once a day, and at least 3 times per week. So again, this is about accountability. Us as leaders, we got to work together. We have to do programs together. We have to be seen together. We shouldn't be smelling each other and having to, tell each other, hey, we need some gum, or you might want to go wash up or something like this. This should be known. This should be understood. We're representatives. So, it's a tough course or tough lesson to go over, but it's just about accountability, holding each other.
Especially here in the UNIA, we have a lot of brothers that's out in the street. We do have a lot of brothers and sisters who are out, like outside. So I mean, I apologize for laughing because I'm an acquaintance with a lot of them who be outside. So it's not like they really believe in being free. And that's just, sometimes how they express themselves. You can offer them a shower, but sometimes they don't take you because they truly believe in that. So I mean, it is what it is.
I understand. We're not, and again, I think when we first started doing this training, somebody was saying, like, we need to we need to be giving this information to the membership and to, everybody pretty much. But again, this is just for the leadership. We're not condemning those, in the membership and amongst the race that don't want to adhere to this policy. Even leadership, if you got good reason or whatever, got good facts to support not doing it, I think it would, it could be accepted. But Garvey's just giving his recommendation, on his years of organizing. I think he's just recommending that us as leaders, as representatives, again, we be clean and presentable.
I guess that's cool on a Zoom meeting, but if we meeting in person, I'm gonna need you to bathe, bro. Sorry.
But yes, I agree. And that's the thing, like, some of this technology can have become a crutch, to some of our people, to where we're forgetting about brushing our teeth in the morning and, bathing daily and regularly, because we're doing everything remotely. But you're absolutely right. But we have to understand these practices. This is not the first time Garvey has mentioned good hygiene. So again, just accountability for all of us. We shouldn't be standing next to each other, smelling each other in a bad kind of way. Not after we went through this lesson. All right. Next question, and this is going back to cleanliness. What does Garvey say about a man who is clean in body, appearance, and mind? And how does Garvey say that man would feel? A man that's clean in body, appearance, and mind.
Self-confident.
Confident, I'm with you, yes. Let's see. Okay, here it is. Yeah. Yes. So about bathing, I'm gonna do both of them together because paragraph after another. Always bathe your skin. Do so at least once a day. If it is not convenient, bathe at least 3 times a week. A dirty body emits bad odor and causes people to shun you. Again, when we were talking about elocution, Garvey talked about flies being around somebody's mouth, and you know that they got bad breath. So being clean, having an appearance of cleanliness is important for us as leaders. If you know you are dirty, you lose confidence in yourself. When you approach other people, you are afraid that they are going to find out that you are not clean. It makes you nervous and you lose your balance and sense of proportion. But if you're thinking about your smell, you can't, again, going back to another previous lesson, having your head and your heart in line. You're not thinking about the people and liberation. You're thinking about how you smell and who can smell you. And then Garvey says, when a man is clean in body, appearance, and mind, he feels like a giant and master. He is afraid of nothing. If he lacks these qualities, he cringes, bows, and hides. He is never himself. So yeah, confidence. You're like giants. You're willing to take on the world when we're clean. We good on that one? Okay. Next question. This is in regards to eating. What should you do if you are invited to dine with friends and you are hungry at the time? If somebody invites you out, if friends invite you out to dinner at their house or their home or whatever, and you're hungry when they invite you, what should you do?
Yeah, I think Garvey said let them eat first, or something to the effect of take small portions, a small bite.
You in the ballpark.
Wasn't it like don't eat up all the food because they think you're greedy or something? Was that it?
Yes, he did say that. Y'all both there. But he's asking, like, well, the question is, if you're invited out to eat, and you're hungry, what do you do? Like, you're gonna be hungry if you just go there and eat all Christmas. All right, let me just get to it. But y'all are right. He says, don't eat like a hog, even in private.
And don't go on
a habit. A custom or habit will develop on you, and you'll become and it will do it unconsciously. Observe good manners in eating and drinking when you go among company. If you are invited to dine with friends and you are hungry, eat a little before you get to dinner. So it's not to show how hungry you are, but basically just eat something before you get there, and kind of act modest amongst the people. So yeah, don't be neutralized, please. All right, last group of questions. I'll try to make these quick. Why should we develop a habit of treating children decently? Why should we treat children decently, according to Garvey and this lesson on character? Greetings, Mama Amina.
I'm sorry, my brother. Greetings. I called in at the wrong hour 7, then I'm calling here late. I'm sorry.
You're all right. We haven't read the next lesson. We're still going over lesson 7. Why should we develop a habit of treating children decently? What's the benefit of treating children decently, other than just treating them because it's the right thing to do?
Doesn't it teach them to be kind? I don't forget.
Thank you for your honesty, my boy. It will teach them to be kind, but what Garvey says is children will tell their parents, and their parents will give you love. So the children will go back and let the parents know, of the charitable work that we're doing. All right, last few questions. What should we do when we are angry to the point of fighting? And what should we do if it's someone that's close to us? So it's two questions. What should we do if we are angry and we're about to fight. And then second half is if that person's close to you, a wife, family, close friend, how's it different?
One thing he said, well, if it's someone that's close to you, walk away, take a break from that situation. I think he said go somewhere where it's serene and peaceful.
Yes, you're absolutely right. For the first one, if it's not someone close to us, you just say count to 10. But basically calm down. And if there is someone close to us, he said, get your hat and go for a walk. But we have to avoid that type of confrontation. We have to avoid that type of confrontation, whether it's somebody close to us or somebody not close to us. Okay, next question. Why does Garvey say that we should never fall in love to the point of losing control of ourselves? It's a kind of long question, but Garvey said
Because
that
you
we
end
should
up
not
losing
fall in
yourself,
love.
don't you?
To us, yes, you end up losing yourself, but what happens when you lose yourself?
About that self-love. Garvey said that you have to love yourself first.
Yes, yeah, that's the kind of underlying.
What?
I think he said you would never love anybody more than you love yourself. I think he said that in the previous chapter.
Yeah, he said never love yourself. I don't know if that was a previous chapter or if that's coming up, but love God. He says love yourself and then love God, and that's it. Those are the two highest, but never, only God should be loved more than yourself. I think that's in here. That might be the next question I just answered. But what he says is you become a slave to that individual, and you lose the qualities of good character that you've developed. You lose your discipline, you lose the habit, everything that the good character that you developed, you lose it because you're trying to make somebody else happy.
Straight up.
Okay, next question. What are some things that we should investigate about our partner when we're considering loving someone? And that kind of goes into, usually when people fall in love, first thing they think about is appearance, outside appearance. So Garvey's challenging that. He's saying, instead of appearance, what are the things that you should consider about a person before you, fall in love with them? And Garvey implies like falling in love is a choice, but that's something else. But what are the characteristics of individuals that we should consider when falling in love?
I don't remember all the characteristics off the top of my head, not all of them, but I do know he said something like when looking for a mate, they should have at least 50% of the qualities you need in order to be happy with them.
I'm gonna find it in the book on this one. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You on point with it.
Hey, Brother John,
talking
repeat
about
that question. I got confused.
What are some of the things that we should investigate when we're considering loving someone? So Garvey used the specific word investigate. Okay. We'll take the time. So Garvey says never love anybody for companionship unless that person has the majority of qualities that you like and appreciate. So that's alluding to what Lady President Tanaya was talking about, majority of those qualities. Never love a person more for his or her physical appearance or personality. First, investigate the character, disposition, temperament, behavior, and thought of the person. And when you find in that person, along with good physical appearance, such as you like, all the qualities, or as many of them as possible that would tend to satisfy you and make you happy through a lifetime, then love that person. But never love anyone before yourself, because you are responsible to God for yourself. Only love God better than yourself. That's where it comes. But first, investigate the character, disposition, temperament, behavior, and thought of that person. So, you know, in the lesson of character, we should consider the character of the ones that we are considering, you know, loving. Okay. Character, disposition, temperament. At what age does Garvey recommend marriage, and why?
It's like 35, 30 something, 35, I think.
35 was one. He said another one. Well, we'll get to the other one. I'll give you 35. Do we know why he says 35? What is it about that age?
Experience in life, experience in the world.
Pretty much, you summed it up. But he said 30 or 35. He said they have enough time to see and understand everything. But yeah, you've seen enough to know, I guess, what you want by that time. Next question. What should we prefer as opposed to stealing from the UNIA? Before we steal from the UNIA, what should we prefer?
Death.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me find that one. I want to read that one. In working for the UNIA, prefer death to stealing from the UNIA. If you steal from the UNIA, hundreds of millions of people will concentrate on you, and when they find out, be exposed if you are found out. But yes, before we steal from the UNIA, we should prefer death. Very important. I'll make sure that's understood. How does Garvey recommend we correct a thief? If we have a thief in the organization, how does Garvey recommend that we correct that thief?
He doesn't. I thought he said get rid of him.
He said don't waste. I think he said don't waste time correcting them, right? Because it's a waste of time.
Yeah, get rid of him. That was some about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a trick question, but y'all on top of it. Baltimore's on top of it. He said to waste time to correct a thief is to hold up the program or of the organization. Get him out of the way and march along. So there's no correcting a thief in this organization. If we found a thief, we get him out the way and we move on. There's no forgiveness. There's no correction. There's no. You definitely gonna pay it back, but you know, no, we can never go back to what it was. What should a person do before they steal from the UNIA? So before we steal from the UNIA, and not death, not what should we prefer, but what should we do before we steal from the UNIA?
Ask for help.
Absolutely. Yes. So last question. Before you steal from the UNIA, beg the UNIA, ask for help from the UNIA, but never steal. And then last question talks about, the last paragraph is about leave another man's wife alone, leave another woman's husband alone. And we talked about that already.
Quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
Because me personally, I always associate a thief and a liar as in like the same circle. So why don't we put this the liar in the same circle? I mean, I know that's just my personal preference. You know what I mean? That's just the way, like, if you're going to lie to me, you're going to probably steal from me as well. And if you're stealing from me, then you definitely lying to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I guess if it's clear cut, it should be in the same case. But from my experience, you know, I'm only in my 30s, but I feel like a lie or stealing is more black and white. You know they stole it. You know exactly how much. Lying can be harder to prove that a person knew what they were lying about. You know, I don't know. I give benefit of the doubt to ignorance a lot. Like, you know, maybe they really didn't know. But
all right, even you know, to the point, I think that maybe they should be removed. You know, not necessarily kicked out of the organization, but removed if they're holding a position of power or position of leadership.
Yeah, I think that's actually in the Constitution. We have to be honest. Like, if you get caught lying, you definitely can't hold a position of leadership. You know, but I don't think you're removed from the organization.
I heard it was a statement.
not
I'm sorry. It was a statement that went like, ignorance is not an excuse for innocence. So I think that's where that is flowing.
I mean, I'm not saying that they're innocent, you know, but I'm just saying, I just feel like stealing is more black and white than lying. But there are some. I do believe that we do have some language in the Constitution in regards to if someone's found lying. I don't know on top of my head. All right, it's 12 after. We still need to read the next lesson. Was there any questions or comments on regards to lesson 7, character? But yeah, in regards to the hidden lesson or unwritten lesson, I think it comes down to conduct and our habits. But good character is the result of conduct, character, and upholding good morals. Okay. Let's see how long this is. Let me go ahead and get started. You might want to read. All right, lesson 8, the social system. Society is an organization of mankind to safeguard and protect its own interests. When society is organized and made evident by regulations, rules, and laws, every member of that society must obey the said rules, regulations, and laws. Therefore, always live up to the organized system of society of which you form a part. The only alternative is rebellion. You should never join rebellious movements against society except when there is a good reason and justification for it. Society is intended to maintain the greatest good for the greatest number, and that is always uppermost, so that in thought you may have. Society is intended to maintain the greatest good for the greatest number, and that is always uppermost, so that in thought you may have to reform. So that in thought you may have to reform. Any society must be calculated to bring about the greatest good for the greatest number, and you must obey its laws. Otherwise, you are an evil genius living in the midst of that society, and that society will seek to destroy you or compel you to obey its rules, regulations, and laws. You cannot live by yourself in society. You must live upon the goodwill of your fellows. Therefore, in that society, you must respect everything that tends to the good of all. You should always seek to have something at stake in the community in which you live, property of some kind, so as to merit the regard and respect of the community. Society, as it is organized in a community, counts first its worthwhile citizens before it thinks of others. Property in a community is evidence of your status in the society of the community. If you have no property, have something of substantial value. The police, the officials, and the government recognize property holders as the citizens of first claim in an organized society. They are generally recorded to be identified. Therefore, you must teach the people to own property and to be known and recognized members of the community. Always adopt a friendly attitude towards the police in your community, because the police is that civil body of officials who are supposed to protect the citizens and see that their rights are not infringed upon. You should always welcome the police. The police are never the public enemy, but the public protector. I forgot to warn y'all on this lesson, and maybe some things that Garvey says that we disagree with. I remember when I first read this lesson, I was a little bit thrown off, but stay with me. Let me get through this lesson. We'll discuss it. Never join to incite public disorder. Keep away from it and be innocent to all that happens. By way of revolution, never allow the UNIA's name to be mentioned as among rioters. You will destroy the usefulness of the organization in that community and may cause suspicion to be cast upon it in other communities. Always disavow any attempt to label the UNIA with riotous behavior. Whatever object is desired in a civilized community, it can always be achieved by the approach of good reason and good judgment. Always use good reason, and good judgment. You are not in a community to overthrow the law in that community. You are there to live under the law. The national aspiration of the race is to find expression, not in revolution where you are established when you are under other people's government, but to accomplish the end in Africa. Therefore, never preach rebellion, because you will disrupt society in which you live and it will crush you. The highest service a citizen can refer to in a community or organized society is to maintain and preserve peace. I'm gonna let y'all know that's gonna be a question next week. I'll say it again. The highest service a citizen can refer to in a community or organized society is to maintain and preserve peace. When the peace is disturbed, it is likely that anybody may get hurt, and sometimes most innocently. Never join the mob. You will most likely be shot or injured, even though you may only be curious. If you are shot or injured in a riotous demonstration, it is almost always evidence against you that you were one of the rioters, so keep away. When the Riot Act or martial law is read or proclaimed in your community, keep indoors. Give this advice to the people. Never join a mob in a foreign country under a foreign government, or where you have very little political influence. Political pull. Politics is the science of government that protects those human rights that are not protected by law. That's another question. What is politics? Law is already established. Well, what is politics from Garvey's perspective? Law is already established. Politics adds to the law or change. Politics add to the laws or change the laws. You should play politics to get good government. The state, nation, or community in which you live directly is always governed by politicians or statesmen. You should know them and become well acquainted with them for your own good. You need them in trouble and out of trouble. And this, what I'm about to read, goes back to another previous lesson where Garvey talked about being known in the community. I'll continue. Always try to know the mayor of your city and the government of your state, island, or country. Try to know the government officials also. To know them before you have trouble is to get help when you are in trouble. Not to know them is to be at a disadvantage when you are brought before them. Always treat them courteously and friendly, even if you don't mean it. Always let them believe you are friendly. If you are to be a leader in your community, this makes it even more imperative that you know everybody of political consequence, because you will have to approach them not only for yourself and for the organization, but for the members of the race who look up to you as their leader. You must never sell yourself to the politician. You must get around him in the most skillful manner. Get all your rights and rights of others dependent upon you out of him without selling yourself to him. To keep him in office, especially if he is a good man in the community. Always seek your vote count for always make your vote count for bringing about the reforms you and others think are right for your community. Never exchange it for money. You should see that every citizen has a vote. Every citizen that has a vote does vote on election day, especially when you have reforms that are to be enacted. Whatever the conditions may be that give you suffrage, live up to those conditions to maintain and hold suffrage. Because just at the time when your vote is most needed, may be the time when you are not qualified to vote because of your carelessness. In countries where as a race you are not allowed to vote, always work to get the vote, but by way of reform. Use the help of everybody, but have political power to bring about the changes that will give you the vote. Otherwise, you will be governed without your consent. To vote is to make the attempt to share in the government of the community. You should never be a political slave in a community because others will take advantage of you. Always cast your ballot for good government. Never support a corrupt government. Next section is approach to government. Always make your government know about your presence. Never hide from the government. Whenever possible, seek an interview with the government on behalf of the people you lead. Always impress upon the government that your movement is not to controvert the established order of the government, but that your people seek a homeland in Africa, which is not to be achieved by revolution in the country in which you domicile as a citizen, but if possible, it is to be achieved with cooperation of the government. Leave all policies of an international character affecting your organization to the international officers. Don't complicate yourself with your government. Constitutional political agitation is not a riot. If you are a citizen, you have the right of public assembly. You have the right to protest against anything that is politically wrong, but that does not suggest that you must riot, because good government always puts down riot. Good government always has a way to settle its political difficulties in the interest of society and the community of which you are a part and of which you have a voice in. When you riot against your government, you are rioting against yourself, because the government cannot exist without you. That is why there is a Constitution. When the Constitution is insufficient to give you all the protection you need, change it by political action. Vote for change, do not riot for change. So we did get through that lesson. Lesson 8, title is The Social System. Any questions or comments on what was read tonight?
I think some of the
One second, I'm sorry. Go ahead, my brother. Matter of fact, go ahead.
some of the things like like you said, you had to give him a chance when he was talking about not being a part of like the riot, because it's going to come back to bite you later on down the line when you're looking to get reform. And the biggest part of it is that when you actually own property and you're rioting, you're tearing up your own property. Unlike
Yes.
in a lot of situations that we've seen over like the past year or two, where it's not actually our property that is being torn up. But I digress. When you are when you're seeing, and it goes back to like the character that we just got finished talking about, because if you're seeing that somebody that is trying to oppose the government, whereas, for instance, when he was in England, England took him as an opposition to the government. When he was in Panama, Panama took him as an opposition to the government. You know what I mean? Instead of somebody that was just trying to rally the people to get the rights that they needed. So I think he learned from that to say, like, you know what? Don't associate yourself with this because they're going to paint you in a bad light. And then once you go and try to talk to the politician, that politician isn't going to be not going to want to be seen with you on any level to talk to you, because they're going to be like, why is he talking to this guy? He's pandering to, you know what I mean, to people that are riding. He's pandering to people that are trying to start a revolution. So there, you know what I mean, there's a wisdom in why he said what he said, because of the experience that he had in traveling in different countries and putting together groups, you know, like union groups and everything. And when you stay away from that type of thing, but you still stand your own ground, you can go and you can approach them because you have the people behind you. You have the numbers behind you. You have the people that actually go and vote behind you.
Yeah. These lessons, I don't call this a book, I call these lessons, but these lessons came from Garvey towards the end of his life. Lessons learned from successes as well as failures. So, yes, that aspect of it. But the other aspect was, I guess, a lot of what was said is summed up in the end, where Garvey says, when you riot against your government, you are rioting against yourself. So everything that we do that, you know, we're frustrated about, we're upset about, we're a part of that process that puts these individuals in power. You know, so we can't just have tantrums like children and want to tear things down and burn things down. We need to understand this process, understand how decisions are being made, who are these decision makers, and how they, you know, get their position. But come at these things from a political standpoint and not just a rebellious standpoint. But again, like for me, you know, not opening it up again, but for me, when I first came into this, you know, what Garvey's saying, like, you know, the police are good and they have a purpose, that threw me off. I was like, man, why would we work with the police and, you know, especially, you know, all the things that's been going on these past few years, it didn't make sense. But it does make sense, you know. We are to be a civilized society, and in a civilized society, you will have these systems. We may argue with how they're being run currently, but we don't want to just tear down we don't want to just abolish the entire system. Even if we do become self-sufficient, we'll still need police. You know, we'll still need lawyers and judges and these things that, you know, politicians. So we have to just understand these processes. Any other questions or comments? That's all we have as far as the reading. Next week, if you don't, you know, I hope everybody has access to the text. I think I shared it in if I haven't shared it, let me know if you need it. I can get it to you. But read the lesson again, read lesson 8 again throughout the week. And then next Tuesday we'll have some questions for the social system. And we'll read lesson 9 that talks about diplomacy. And, we're making progress. We've gone through 7 lessons as far as the questions and, you know, what I would consider a deep level of understanding of each of the lessons. And then next week we will go over lesson 8. And we'll continue to work our way up. But we should have a good foundation at this point, you know, of what this course is trying to instill in us and what the expectations of a graduate and a representative would be. So, yeah, I guess, you know, I'm not going to hold y'all. You know, I know it's holidays coming up. I'm getting one more final call. Any questions, comments? We'll move to close.
We just want to thank you for all your work and for what you shared with us.
And thank you, everybody, for coming on the call. Again, I know it's holidays. You know, this was a small group today. Well, no, it turned out okay. So thank you, everybody. Get some rest. Enjoy your holidays, and we'll get back next week to discuss the next lesson.
All right, thank you much.
Thank you, family. We'll close out with the motto. Repeat after me. One God.
One God.
One God,
One aim.
One
one
aim,
aim,
one
One destiny.
destiny.
and one destiny.
Africa for the Africans.
Africa for the Africans.
For the Africans,
Those at home. Those abroad.
Those at home,
those at home,
those abroad, and those abroad.
and those abroad.
Vice versa.
First preacher, Brother Joe.
The rest of y'all next week.
Conference recording stopped.
Take care.
All right.